Hello, my name is Sunny Neal, and the intention of this video is to explain how to play the water game in a way that allows you to support the learning outcomes for your students, but most importantly, to make it really fun, really exciting, and really engaging. So I have played hundreds of serious games with corporate people and government people and students and university students. And the reason that you play a serious game is because it's a really exciting and engaging way to learn about complex systems and how they work. One of the points of feedback that I get around these games is often that people realize, firstly, the system is a lot more complicated than they had originally thought. And secondly, that they have a lot of skills in relationship management and negotiation that they didn't realize that they already had. Now, for grade 7 and 8 students, this is a fantastic insight, obviously, to have. As a teacher, I hope that you can use this game as a framework in which you're able to engage with the students on other learning outcomes associated with the water cycle and with science. So it's possible to use this game as a framework in which to support students to do more research about the water system in Victoria, but also some of the science outcomes that are part of your curriculum. So sit back, relax. We'll go through this journey together over the next 20 minutes or so. And by the end of it, you should understand everything that you need to know about how to play the game and support the students. The water system in Victoria is very complicated. So the way this game is structured is in 5 different groups, each of which represents a different stakeholder in that system. And the students get to take on the role of one of those stakeholders and try to navigate the system. Those 5 stakeholder groups are the following. There's traditional owner groups. And they're really interested in environmental flows and outcomes in the system. Secondly, there are water corporations, and their job is to make sure that water arrives in the taps and that the infrastructure is looked after and that it's clean. Their job as an organisation is to stay solvent, is to make enough money to keep the business going. The third group is agribusiness. So these guys, their job is to, grow fibre and food and sell it and make a profit. So their motivation is to make a profit. The third group is local government. They have a lot to say about the way the water system operates. They're very interested in ensuring that water keeps arriving to their businesses and their homes, and that people are getting good, high quality water when they want it. What they want is to be re-elected, so they make sure that water arrives when and as it's needed so they can get re-elected. The last group is the Victorian government, who obviously is responsible for managing the whole system and ensuring that everybody gets looked after. And in Victoria, the department that runs the water part of the system is the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning. So you can either call it DELP or you can just call it the Victorian government. So you need to imagine now that you're sitting in this room, you and a couple of colleagues, and you have 5 groups of students who are sitting, some of them on the floor, some of them on tables, some of them with Tim Tams, and some of them with glasses of water. And up on the screen behind you, you have your water system, the game program, how much water is in the dams, how good the environment is. And the students are thinking from their particular role, traditional owners or local governments, and you're about to start the game. You go, okay guys, we're ready to start the game. Everyone ready to go? It's going to go for 6 minutes. Let's see what the weather is like. Blunk, push the button, come up with a number. The dams go up or the dams stay the same. You go, great, the game has started. You have 6 minutes, go. Now, the teachers sit back and allow the students to start playing the game. At that point, they start negotiating and discussing, making declarations, and the game rolls through for 6 minutes. In this game, the aim, like any game, is to win. What's interesting is that you win as an individual group, but you lose collectively. What that means is, if the system runs out of water, you all die. So if the dams ever get to 0, the game ends and the game is over and you've all lost. So everybody wants to make sure there's at least some water in the dams. But other than that, winning is different for every single one of the groups. And that's where it gets interesting, because their interests aren't always aligned and they need to negotiate with each other. So for example, the Aboriginal traditional owner groups are interested in the environment. So when the environment is getting better, and that's one of the measures in the program that you'll have on the screen in front of you, they win. Agribusinesses want to make money, so when they're making more money, they win. The people in the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning want promotions, so when they get to fulfil a government policy, they get a promotion. Water corporations just want to keep going, so as long as they don't go bust, they win, which isn't always as easy as it sounds. Local governments want to get re-elected, so if they can keep people happy in their electorate, then they win. There are 5 rounds of 6 minutes each. In each of those 6 minutes, the teacher's job is to step back and allow the students to negotiate and come up with solutions and make decisions and declarations. And then when the 6 minutes is over, the program will have a timer, it'll be counting down, and it'll say, click, 6 minutes is over. The teacher goes, the round is over. Now let's figure out what happened. Who's winning? How much money have you got left? What actually happened? And then prepare for the next round. The game itself takes about 1 hour to play. But the preparation beforehand and the debrief afterwards can take as long as you want. I've found that a lot of people actually would like to play the game more than once, and actually that's a fantastic outcome, because students who are able to play multiple perspectives in the game, played in different groups, get a whole new conception of how the system works. I would recommend playing this game with multiple classes. You certainly need more than 1 teacher. 2, even 3 is probably optimal. 4 would be fine as well. I'm going to talk to you about the resources that are available to you to help you play the game. And then I'm going to go through the 3 phases of the game, explaining each stage and what is required of you to help the students. The resources that are available to you to help play the game are, firstly, a teacher's guide. So the teacher's guide is a written document that explains all the various components of the game, many of which I'm going to talk through in this video. It also includes this video that you can go back to and listen to several times if you want to clarify different parts of the game. But really it should be pretty self-explanatory. And what I would recommend is when you get to playing the game, just trust that the game will make sense to the students and they will know how to play it. And it really isn't that complicated once you start playing. So don't worry if it feels like it's a little bit much to absorb in the first instance. When it comes to actually playing the game, it's relatively straightforward. So to make that even easier for you, on the day that you do actually get to play the game, there is a cheat sheet that you can bring in with you, that you can put in front of you with all the various things that you need to do and the processes you need to run to make the game run smoothly. But again, in most cases, especially once you've played it once, it's pretty intuitive and self-explanatory. So that's the teachers. The other thing that you have is a game program. Now, the game program should arrive either on a USB stick or via email. The game program you plug into a laptop and then you project onto a screen. And it's essentially the measures that allow you to see how the water system broadly is going. There are 5 measures that we've determined will more or less represent how the whole system is going. They are dams, how much water is in the dams, obviously. Environment, how healthy is the environment that relies on water. There is carbon footprint, which is how many tons of greenhouse gas emissions are required to get water from A to B. The higher that goes, the more impact on climate change. The 4th measure is How clean is our drinking water? And the fifth measure is water restrictions or water price. Now it's restrictions and price together because generally speaking, the more restricted water is, the higher the price and vice versa. There's one other thing that the teachers do that help move the game forward, and that is at the beginning of every round, it rains. The teacher presses a button and essentially a six-sided dice rolls on the screen above you, and where that dice rolls determines how much rain there's going to be over the next round of the game, which is over 6 minutes. If you roll a 6, you have a flood and there's a great deal of water and the dams fill up. If you roll a 1, there's a drought and there's no water at all. And there won't be any until the next time you start a round in 6 minutes' time. The third resource that you have available to you is for the students, and they are the player packs. The students will be divided into 5 groups to play the game. For now, all you need to know is that there is a description for each of these groups that the students can read and discuss to help them get into the role and into the character of that particular group. To really kind of bring it home for them, there's also a video. And the video will allow the students to listen to somebody talking about their sector, their kind of interest group, who actually runs one of these organizations. Now, the students, if they can get into understanding what it's like to be in that group, what the drivers are and the motivations are, and they can discuss it with their colleagues and their friends and come to the game with a bit of a plan, the deeper they can sink into that role, the better. It's a bit like acting, it's role playing essentially. So the deeper they can get into the role, the more fun they're going to have when they're playing it. And of course, the more they're going to bump up against people in the other groups who have different perspectives of what the system is like and how it operates. And that's really where the fun starts to happen, right? And then just like for the teachers, the students have a cheat sheet that they bring into the game with them that again explains what they can and can't do and makes it easy for them in the moment to declare what actions they're going to take and to negotiate the outcomes that will allow them to win the game or not. There's one more thing that is available to the students, which is a video just like this one for everybody. So just like I'm explaining this game to you from a teacher's perspective, there is a video that explains this game to them from a student's perspective. So to play the game, you need a couple of resources. The first resource that you need is a laptop on which you can put the game program to project up onto the wall. You need one teacher sitting next to the laptop at all times who can press the buttons that change the measures on the screen. They can always refer to the cheat sheet that's next to them to know which buttons to press. The other thing that I'd highly recommend is some drinks and nibbles because it kind of lifts the experience of the game a little bit and makes it a bit more fun. But it also helps to set the scene. It helps to distinguish between those groups in the game who are wealthy and have lots of money and resources and those groups in the game who don't have so many resources to play with. I've found playing this game that distinguishing that up front, setting the context, can really make a difference to the game. People automatically start thinking, oh, I'm from a rich group or I'm from a not so rich group. So I would recommend, a jug of water for one of the students, maybe a jug of fruit juice for another of the student groups. You could put some apples and nuts, some Tim Tams, whatever your food policy allows. From the groups that have more resources, have more nibbles, to the groups that have fewer nibbles. So they're all the resources that you need. Now I'm going to talk about the 3 phases of the game and step you through each one of those 3 phases and how they play out. The first phase of the game is in many ways the most important of the phases, and that is the preparation. Like I said at the beginning of this video, you can do that in half an hour or an hour before the game starts, or you can stretch it out. Now, if you stretch it out, it's a fabulous opportunity to research and learn more about the group that they're going to belong to. So the first thing to do, once you've told the children that you're going to play this game with one or multiple classrooms, is to get everybody together and watch the video for students. Once you've watched the video, you need to divide the kids up into the 5 different stakeholder groups. I would do that randomly. you could just have a bucket with with bits of paper with the names of the different groups, and every kid comes and picks one, and then they belong to that group and goes to different parts of the room. If they get to do some research beforehand, the even better is that they sit down as a group and watch the video that is specific to that group. As a teacher, your job is to almost try to get them to see the entire water system from a very one-eyed perspective, from the perspective of their group. You want them to play the role so fully that by the time they get into the game, they're surprised to discover that the other groups see things a little bit differently and have different motivations. And that's where the juice really starts to happen. So after they've watched the video and they've had a chance to have a quick discussion about that, you get them in groups to read the description of their role. And they can then have a discussion about the various actions that that group has available to them. Next, you want to give them an opportunity to discuss their strategy. So remember, they've watched the video about how the game plays, they've watched the video about their role, they've read the role descriptions and what levers and dials and tools and resources they have available to themselves. They might have done a whole bunch of research about their particular group, depending on how you as a teacher want to run this. Now you need to give them an opportunity to sit down together and have a discussion about strategy. How are they going to win? Each group wins differently. What's their plan? And some are going to be at tables and some are going to be sitting on the floor. The more that you can emphasize the difference in power and resources between the two groups, the more they get into their role and the more the game kind of plays out as a fun role-playing game, and the deeper they understand that some of the actors in that system have real influence and some of them don't. You can imagine how this would occur to students coming in and seeing how unfairly things are set up. That impression is exactly the one you want to create. So this is how the game actually plays out. This is what the students are going to do. On their cheat sheets, for each of the 5 different groups, there is a list of actions that they can take. Some groups can take a lot more actions than other groups. The Victorian Government, the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, which from henceforth in this video I will now call DELP, they have a whole raft of things they can choose to do, from implementing water restrictions all the way to building desalination plants. They have a lot of options. But the traditional owner groups, who have many fewer resources and fewer policy levers, have far fewer options available to them. They can't build desalination plants, they can't declare water restrictions, but they can advocate and they can run campaigns. So each of the 5 groups have a list of actions that they can declare at any time in those 6-minute blocks. The beauty of this game is, once the game is set up and you're sitting there as a teacher ready to push the right buttons with your cheat sheet and change the measures on the game, on the board, and you declare the round has started, go, your job is essentially just to sit back and let the kids figure out how they're going to do this for 6 minutes. The key is that any kid at any time can declare any action that is on their cheat sheet. There is no governance or organization in the group unless they choose to create it. So at any point, a kid from a water corporation can stand up and say, teacher, I want to build a desalination plant, or I want to build a renewable energy park. It's on my cheat sheet. This is what I'd like to do. Once they've declared that, the teacher's job is to press the right button on the laptop that will change the metrics or the measures of the program of the game so everyone can see what's happened, what's changed. Obviously, building a desalination plant means there's more water in the dam, so that will go up. And then that kid sits down. Now, the other people in that group may not agree that that's what they wanted to do. Hopefully they do, but they may not. It's not your job to intervene in that process. Kids from one group can make a declaration. Kids from another group can make a different declaration. And they can do it as often as fast as they want. Now, in most cases, in my experience, kids are very good negotiators. They go out there and they start talking to each other. And the game is structured so that it privileges them to do that. It's in their advantage in most cases, but it doesn't always happen. Most of the time what happens is the kids go around and start saying, well, if I do this, how about you do that? And if I do this, then you do that. Sometimes they do that for way too long and the 6 minutes runs out. And you need to remind them, guys, we're up to 4 minutes. You've got 2 minutes left in this round and this round is going to end. If you haven't made any declarations, nothing happens. Now, for some groups, that'll help them. If the measures on the board are going to let that group win, they may not want to do anything at all. That's often the case with agribusiness. Quite happy to let things just float along as they are. But for other groups looking at that board, they might go, the drinking water is really low. That's not good. I'm not going to get re-elected as a local government councillor. I need to get that up. Who can do that for me? I haven't got the resources. The Water Corporation does, or the state government does. I'm going to go and talk to them. So that's how the game plays out. There are 8 actions that students can declare at any time. The actions are on the action sheet, so I'm not going to go through each of those in detail. There's one other really, really interesting thing that the teachers can do that I leave up to your discretion. These are called wildcards. Wildcards are fascinating and seemingly extraordinary things that could happen that would impact the water system quite substantially. So if the game's ever getting a bit slow, or some students are not kind of engaging fully, often agribusiness, but not always, or it's getting a bit rambunctious, or in any way you want to kind of chart the dynamic of the game a little bit and influence it, these wildcards are a cracker, and they're great fun too. Like massive bushfires that has an impact on the system. There are some such as Extinction Rebellion happens and influences how the local government people want to act. These are on your cheat sheet and in your teacher's guide. I advise you to read through them in a little bit of detail. These are your wild cards that you slip into your back pocket. You can declare them at any time. You can pause the game, pause the counter if you want to, or you don't have to, you can just declare them. But in most cases, you would pause the counter and you would say, hey guys, something has happened. There's been a revolt by the Extinction Rebellion. They're marching through the streets of local governments demanding climate action. What that means is that local governments, if you want to win this round, you need to decrease the carbon footprint of water. If you can get that number down, you will win this round. If you can't, you will lose it. Guys, I'm starting the game again now. Click, off they go. It will shift the dynamic radically. Suddenly everything shakes up. I'm now going to talk about the debrief, which is the final part of this game, and in some ways the most important part of the game because it's kind of where the best learnings happen. Again, if you want the debrief to happen in 15 minutes at the end of the game and get everyone to have a conversation about what happened, what worked, what didn't work, that's fine. That works fine. If you can, I would recommend stretching the debrief out over potentially a couple of days or potentially using it as a lead-in to playing the game a second time or learning a bit more about the water cycle and the water system. So the debrief should really happen in about 3 phases. The first happens with the students in their own group. What happened? Why did we end up this way? How well did we go? Did we win? Did we lose? Did we go bankrupt? What actually happened in the game? The second stage, you should mix them up, maybe into 2 groups, where you have kids from different player groups all together having a similar conversation, but starting to see it from a different perspective. They would have a clear idea of what didn't work if we ran out of water. Well, it was blah blah's fault. But once they get into that conversation, there'll be different perspectives, and there's a lot of learning that's possible and available for them in that space. And the third conversation is everybody all together having a conversation about what happened, what worked, what didn't work, and what you would need to do to influence the system down the track. Who should have more influence? What education should be provided? Where should the resources go? And really importantly, how did the process of engaging in this work? What worked when you talked to people? What didn't work when you talked to people? You really want to emphasize a focus on the importance of relationship management skills and seeing the situation from another person's point of view in that part of the discussion. Because in my experience playing these games hundreds of times over the years, that is probably the single most important lesson that kids and adults can take out of a game like this. So that's the whole game and how to play it. It might sound complicated, or you might feel that this has been fairly straightforward and you understand all of it. What I would emphasize is that you can trust the students. It is amazing how much they can understand about a game like this intuitively. And once you're actually in the game and playing it, people just play it. It's not a process you need to control too much. You set the scene, you let them know what the rules are, and you pretty much just let them fly. And something extraordinary will come out of it. I promise you, every time. Thanks for watching the video. Please, I look forward to hearing about how it has gone. You can email me at Sonny, SONNY, at SonnyNeale, SONNYNEALE.com. I love your feedback. The Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority has been very courageous in creating an innovative new program like this, so I wanted to thank them for the opportunity to create a game like this as a way of learning, improving learning outcomes for students, and I would also say for potentially teachers and also for me. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the game.